more shocked than anything, you know what I'm saying?
Welcome to The Undercurrent, your source for grassroots news. I'm Lauren Windsor. From June 20th to the 23rd, activists gathered in San Jose, California for the biggest progressive political conference in the country, Netroots Nation. Former Congressman Barney Frank and former Governor Howard Dean held a panel called Too Big to Sustain in reference to the bloated Pentagon budget. The two legendary progressives opined on ways to reduce military spending in order to bolster social programs like Social Security and Medicare.
It's now a zero-sum game. People understand it. If you believe we should reduce the deficit, either you make the cuts of the order of magnitude I'm talking about in the military, or you devastate health care.
What about veterans? How can we talk about reducing the military budget and not harm the record number of veterans coming home? And to that, I might add the record number of veterans who have PTSD and things like that.
Very simple. The veterans budget is separate from the military budget. The most satisfied consumers of medical care in America are the people who go to the Department of Veterans Affairs. They're the ones who fight hardest to keep it there. They're the ones who said, don't exclude veterans affairs. And you know what the Department of Veterans Affairs medicine is? It is socialized medicine, 100%. You go to a VA hospital and a government doctor puts you in a government bed and tells a government nurse to stick a government needle in your ass. Last point is the jobs impact. And of course, one of the great things, Paul Krugman and I kind of independently arrived at this, is what we both call military Keynesianism. People who don't think the government creates jobs, that government spending doesn't create jobs, make a great exception where it's the military. In the first place, much of what we are talking about cutting is money spent overseas, in Germany, in other places. Secondly, military spending tends to be, in some extent, very capital intensive. It's not great for employment. And finally, from the standpoint of cutting the military, you can do it by attrition. I wouldn't fire any member of the armed services. Any kid who volunteered, we're going to honor our obligation. But the average enlistment is 6 years. So in a very short period of time, you can bring down the number of troops. And we don't need as many military personnel as we have, and we don't plan to have more of these bad wars.
It seemed to me that their implication for closing bases and reducing boots on the ground was to increase the use of drones. After being ignored by the Twitter moderator, I went a little rogue in order to get their answers.
Okay, I don't have a Twitter question, so I'm going to pick one from the audience. Is that what you're doing? Or is it going to have a total revolution here?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I actually tweeted mine, but I guess it either didn't go through or it's like a selective thing. And I was just wondering if you support the use of drones as a way to cut military spending?
I support the use of drones in a very limited and much more careful way, because there are bad people out there, and if there's nothing else you can do, then I think that's legitimate in self-defense. The answer is, if you can be clear that there are bad people that you know are doing bad things and killing other people, and there's no way to capture them, then I think the drones in those limited cases are okay.
What is the greater cost, though, in a humanitarian expense? And
well, the cost, nothing is more expensive than sending American troops into battle. You know what? Drones don't have to eat. Drones don't have to have medical hospitals. Drones they don't go to bed. They don't have to be protected.
when I was saying humanitarian expense, I wasn't referring to U.S. American military expense, but rather the innocent women and children that are killed overseas.
That's why I think, well, first place, if you're going to send troops in, more people are going to be killed than through the drone. The drone is not as clean, but when you send troops in, look, innocent people got killed in World War II. I mean, there's just no way.
That's kind of short term. In the longer term, we're inspiring more terrorists.
Your question, I'm trying to answer your question. In terms of people, innocent people being killed, conventional military does more than the drones. If you're talking about making people angry, once again, conventional intervention does more than the drones. So if it's a question of comparing a conventional intervention versus drones, I want the drones to be targeted more carefully than they have been.
As you'll see, defending the bedrock social programs of America and of the Democratic Party was a popular topic at Netroots. Congressmen Alan Grayson and Mark Takano participated in the panel Weak Democrats versus Strong Progressives, Lessons from the Social Security Fight. The two penned a letter to President Obama urging him to protect Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare from any cuts whatsoever. There are currently 44 signatories.
Why is it that President Obama seems so intent on compromising foundational principles to the Democratic Party, compromising on Social Security?
Well, I think I've learned a lot from reading Doris Kearns Goodwin's book on Abraham Lincoln, The Team of Rivals. Lincoln himself was frequently criticized by the radical Republicans, who were really the kind of leading edge of progressives. I mean, hard to believe that Republicans were once progressive, but back in the 1860s they were. And the way I kind of project my views on Obama is that, I see him as somebody who is fundamentally about trying to conciliate. Some people wanted to punish the South for the Civil War. Lincoln kept talking about with malice toward no one. But I think, the way I read Obama a lot is that he's someone who views his role in history as someone like that, to try to heal a nation that's greatly divided. But sometimes I think he misreads what really the nation needs sometimes. Not on every issue, but on issues such as this one with Social Security, he doesn't need to be the conciliator. He needs to be someone who's strong.
Are progressives ready to challenge him and hold his feet to the fire?
Well, I think that is our role in Congress, is to represent our constituents. And my role is to constantly telegraph to my leadership in Congress and to telegraph my views to the President, to telegraph the views of my constituents. To let the President know, hey, Mr. President, no, this is the wrong path. And we are needed in the Congress, we progressives are needed in the Congress to expand the terms of debate, not allow the debate to just shift to one side, and we create the conditions for a better outcome when we do that.
Quite a few progressive candidates made the rounds at Netroots, among them Rick Weiland, who is running for the U.S. Senate in South Dakota, and Derek Cressman, who is running for Secretary of State in California.
What are your major issues that you plan to address upon election?
Well, one of the big issues and when I made my announcement on the 8th of May was all about how broken and messed up Washington is these days and why. I personally feel that big money and the special interests they represent.
Money in politics. Money in politics.
Well, I mean, it's
You're after my heart when you say that.
It's a big problem, and I know it from the inside because I've raised money. I've run for office. I've raised money for Senate races. I've raised money for my own races. Candidates spend more time raising money than they do talking to the people they're asking to vote for them. The first piece of legislation I'm going to introduce in the United States Senate would be a constitutional amendment to overturn or override the Citizens United decision. I'm very much committed to that. I do think that big money is affecting public policy. And I'll give you a good example. A few weeks ago, Tim Cook from Apple was testifying before a Senate committee about paying all the taxes that Apple owes. I love Apple, I really do. I got all their products, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, yeah, they are paying all the taxes they owe. And who writes the tax code? When General Electric
corporations.
When General Electric has 600 tax attorneys on staff, and we have these huge loopholes for corporations to park money over in Irish banks, and we're kicking kids off a head start because of sequestration, and we're talking about jacking interest rates up on student loans, and we're wanting to reform Medicare to save it. To me, I just don't buy any of that. I want to reform the tax code. I want a constitutional amendment to get big money out of our American system of politics, and then we'll start, I think, more effectively dealing with a lot of the trouble and problems we have in this country.
More shocked than anything, you know what I'm saying?
Bottom line, it's clear that Democrats could learn a lot from their Republican brethren. That is, in leveraging their ideological base. Democrats must become more uncompromisingly progressive on the foundational principles of their party. From Alan Grayson and Mark Takano on Social Security, to Elizabeth Warren on banking reform, to Texas State Senator Wendy Davis on a woman's right to choose, progressive ideas are clearly popular. It might sound trite, but if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. I'm Lauren Windsor. Thanks for watching. Get pulled in to the undercurrent. Subscribe! Don't forget to subscribe! Subscribe to the undercurrent!